Now we're on the final part, part 3, where we talk about the third and last but not least core aspect of our turn-based combat system, and that is gonna be the UI. So without any further ado, let's dive right in. Now, the real doozy of the scripts that we have is, of course, going to be UI. UI, the front end of the actual game, is, my opinion, my least favorite parts. But once it actually all comes together, it's very fine. This is what the inspector looks like for UI. And once we dive right in, we have 3 different UI scripts that we need to look at: the player stat display, UI object, and combat UI. So first, let's look at the main combat UI. We have 4 different parts: the initiative order, player stats, skills, and the action display. Now let's look at the smaller side first. We have a game object that stores our action display. Action display is that nice little pop-up text that we have that displays our attack and our effect. So we have the game object that stores that game object, and a text row variable that we grab our action display text and the description. Next, for skills, it is that sticky note that I was talking about before, which is our UI object. This game object is we have a game object that is the parent for all 3 of those UI objects. And then again, UI object, which is a variable for basic, skill, and skill 2. Then moving up again, we have our player stats display. This player stats display, in which is a game object. We have a game object which stores the prefab, and we have a list of game objects, which is the list of player displays that we have. And then the transform, which is the parent for all those player displays. And the next, initiative order, we need to have a list of game objects, which is all those icons that's lined up on the corkboard. We need to have a game object, which is an indicator for whose turn it is, a base icon for when a character leaves the field, and then a order icon, transform, in which, actually, I don't use this. I don't know why it's still here. And then lastly, we have the initiative number, which displays the number in which whose initiative it is. So going down this list, we have turning off the UI. You just turn off the action display and the UI objects. UI object updater, in which reference within turn-based combat system. In there, it references if the player is active, it'll turn on those objects, and then we are updating those stats. And if it's not the player, it'll just turn off. It'll just remain off. So when it goes update, it'll take the basic UI object, update the skill UI, reference the name of the basic attack. Same thing with the skill 1 name. Same thing with skill 2, reference it with skill 2. Let's go take a quick peek at what a UI object does. Since we don't have it become a button yet, it doesn't have that UI interface or UI callback. So instead, we just have it become a name changer, just a display for the name of the attack, and to display which button that you need to press for which attack you want to do. So it just stores its text mesh pro. It grabs this function where we take the string name and we take the text mesh pro, change the text to equal that name. Now going back here, we move down to this display text, the all other UI that gets disabled. So if it's a player will, if the active character is a player, it will turn on that action display, update the text. And if it's not the player, then it'll just remain off. Now, updating the text requires the person and that selected input. So if the selected input is none, UI will just remain off. If the selected input is basic, it'll grab the text, give that header attack, and then add in that basic name, that basic attack name. Next, for the description text, it'll add in effect, and then add in the name for that effect of that basic attack. And then for skill, it'll do the skill 1's name, skill 1's effects, and if it's skill 2, it'll grab skill 2's name and skill 2's effect. Now, update display order. This will just update the turn order that appears up on the top right corner. So for each object, it'll grab the icon, it'll grab the sprites of each object in that list, and then turn it back to the base icon. And then in any point of the time in the game, we just have it locked at 8, as in 4 on enemy side, 4 player side. So we just have the maximum be 8. If the integer is less than the order count, that display at that index has that image, has their sprites turned into the icon of the player, going from their character stats, going to grab from the scriptable object, going back to that icon. And then next we have our update initiative UI. So we just grab the initiative number and then we take that text and then we turn it to the number. And then the update active is what displays that little thumbtack. It will, if an active character exists, the thumbtack or the indicator, the position of that transform will equal to the order display. So one of those images, those icons on the corkboard at the index of the character in the turn order, it'll go to that transform position. So just to repeat myself to see if I'm clear, the update active needs the turn order and then the active character. If an active character does exist or is not null, the indicator's position will equal to the index of the active character within the turn order into the display. So it matches their positions on the turn order list and their turn order script, and then it'll just match to the turn order UI's transform position. So by then, the player character has that thumbtack on their icon itself. Next, we initialize stat display at the beginning of the turn-based game. At the beginning of the game, as on start, we initialize the stat display. So with the player characters, for each player in that order, a player display will be instantiated with the prefab under the parent of the player display transform. So it goes under that layout group. And then whenever any of the HP changes, like on the start of the game, when they take damage or when they heal, update stats display if it is a player with the player's character list. For each index within the order count, the player displays index at that basically where that character is. It will grab the player stat display class and then run the function set stuff, which grabs that character at that index of that order. It'll grab their stats, it'll grab their name, it'll grab their icon, and then we'll set their health and their max health. To easily explain this, we'll go down into player stat display. So here it stores the name, stores an image for icon, and then a text mesh pro UGI that stores health. And the void for set stuff, we'll need to grab a string for the name, a sprite for the icon, and two floats. One to go for max HP and one for float. So first we set that icon with the image sprite, and then that text for that text mesh pro, we set it to that string. And then for the text for the HP, we just has HP plus integer version of the health and then divide by that max health. So with the sample, we just have that player stat display on the bottom left, which updates using the update stat display script. So each one along the row will line up to the characters along the row as well. And then with restart stat display that is under party manager, it will destroy all the displays that exist. It will clear that list and then instantiate new ones. So just in case when a player dies, it'll destroy all the ones that's been spawned and then reset the list in the order at which all characters exist. Now with the UI, it's very obvious from what you can see what it is. Not really that hard to explain and look at. So from the base, this is what we get. We have already the indicator at the top over here. We have the number for the initiative. We do have the transform down here. We don't have any objects yet because we instantiate them. We do have our action display right here and our skill UI for our sticky notes for our display, for our skills and attacks. Now, as you can see from the game manager, they're all just connected together in here, just referencing all through the inspector. And then once the actual game actually starts, you can just simply see how it all works. Now with that does wrap up everything that is needed for the entire game. That is all the three core aspects, all with the characters, the systems, and the UI. Now, I'm very proud of this system. This was made out of my own efforts and with a little bit of help from online resources and also inspiration from friends and whatever. And now, which as you can see, the assets made in this game is made by one of our group members. His name is Cole. He's the one that made the assets and also the 2D assets. He also made the icons. Well, the picture of the icons, I graffitied on top of them just for the turn-based combat example, which is this one. Now, just like any other project, there is few bugs and kinks, but with all that in mind, I am still very proud of this system. I'd say it is one of the best works that I've ever made, and have made recently as well. Now, I apologize for such a long series of videos with thorough explanations with all the scripts. Hopefully, all of it was pretty clear and concise. Again, there is a GitHub link in the description which you can access the open source project. And right now, if you do notice, there is a nice little timestamp at the bottom right, which is on my taskbar. You can see it is currently 4 a.m. and recording this at 4 a.m. is kind of fun. So now that is my turn-based combat system. Hopefully you have enjoyed listening to me chat and talk about and explain essentially the entire project, and hopefully you all have a wonderful rest of your day. All right, goodbye.